Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another day of Aquarium Online Academy. My name is Sarah. I'm one of the educators here at the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach, California, and I'm so excited that you are joining us and that I get to join you wherever you are to do some ocean exploring today. Now, a couple things before we start. So right now I am in our blue cavern, which is one of our exhibits here, and we're going to do lots of exploring different animals, and I'd love to hear from you to answer questions, to share your observations, just even to say hello and good morning. So I'm here with my friend Sergio, and he's controlling everything you see behind me, and he just put up our text line. So if you'd like to respond to any questions, share those observations, just say hi, you can go ahead and text us at 562-286-1838. Oh, hello. There's a bat ray, a stingray right there. Now that text line is for if you're watching live. So that means that it's April 16th at 9 a.m. in the morning. Now, if you're watching after the fact, we'd still love to be able to answer your questions and say hello, but we do ask that you email us at live@lbaop.org. All right, everyone, are you ready to get started? Now, today's topic are adaptations. Now, you might be familiar with that word, especially if you've watched programs with us before. We talk about adaptations a ton. Or maybe this is your first time joining us, or you haven't heard that word before. So we're going to talk about what that word means, and then we're going to explore some adaptations on some animals. Now, I'm going to take a step back. We'll take away our lower third, and we can show that word adaptations. It's kind of hidden right here. So that word adaptation, we're going to take a step back before we define adaptation. I want you to think a minute. I'm going to step off the camera and take a look at the animals we have here. We have fish. I just mentioned we have a stingray. There's a shark in here. Any animal in the ocean, I want you to think about what those animals need to survive. Now, you can even think about us as humans. There are things that we need in order to survive. Now, there might be things that we would like or that are nice to have, but there's a couple essential things that we absolutely need in order to survive, to stay healthy, and to continue living the way we do. So I want you to think for a moment, and if you want to go ahead and text us, what do you think an animal needs to survive? Because that is going to tie into what we define as adaptations and how we find adaptations on animals. So think for a moment, what does an animal need to survive? Some interesting things to think about. Now, those things that animals need to survive are pretty universal. Now, it might be a little bit different for our animals who live in the ocean versus animals on land, but there are some things that those animals share in common. So we need some things that are the same as the animals here, like the fish and the rays and the sharks, and they have some things in common with animals who live on land, whether it's humans or dogs or cats or monkeys or bears, whatever animal we think about. Now, I'm going to go over to my document camera, and I'm actually going to write down some of those things that are essential for our survival. So, one thing, now this thing, as humans, we do get a lot of enjoyment from, but one thing that animals need to survive is they need food, right? So, you need to eat. You need to eat healthy food so you get all the nutrients. It helps us grow. And all the animals in Blue Cavern that we looked at, all the animals in the ocean who live anywhere on the planet, they need to take in food. Now, the amount of food they take in, what kind of food, might differ or vary between animals. But one of the things that we need for survival is to eat. We need food. So I'm going to write food. I'm going to actually write up here. What we need to survive. We need food. That's one thing. What else might animals need? Now, if we're thinking about animals in the ocean, something that they might need that is different from animals on land is, that's right, they need water. Absolutely. Now, they need water. Now, they need water to keep their body healthy, and they're actually taking something out of the water that us humans need as well. Now, we're not taking it out of the water, but I want everyone to take a deep breath. Feels so nice for our body. But we need air, right? We need oxygen. We need to be able to breathe. And animals in the water, they actually need that same thing as well. And they get their oxygen from the water. So I'm also going to add plus oxygen. Or I'm going to write air because it's much easier for us to recognize. Excellent. So food, we need water and air to breathe. What else might we need? Think about some of those animals we saw in Blue Cavern. Let's go look at Blue Cavern for a moment. You might notice, of course, now there's very few animals in front of our camera, but you might notice that we have animals of different sizes in here, right? We've got some smaller fish up here, These ones over here are maybe a little bit larger, but they're not that big. But we did see we had our giant sea bass. Oh, coming right here. That's a pretty big fish. So fish might be different sizes. And it kind of ties into food, but animals need to be able to stay safe, right? Some smaller fish might be more vulnerable to being maybe eaten by larger fish or larger animals. So all animals, whether they're big or small, they need to be able to stay safe. They need to protect themselves. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to write safe/protection. So animals need food, they need water, air, they need to find safety, or they need protection. And then another thing that kind of ties into protection is they need shelter. They need home, which is kind of like a safe place. But I'm going to add in a home/shelter. And they all kind of tie together, but these are some of the important things that animals need to survive. Now, there are lots of other things that we could add to this list, but these are some of the big things that an animal might need to survive. All right, let's go back to Blue Cavern for a moment. And let's put our word adaptation back up. Now, I want you to think, have you heard this word before? Go ahead and give a thumbs up wherever you are. If you're in your classroom, if you're at home, if you're watching with friends or family or by yourself, give a thumbs up if you've heard that word before. A thumbs down if you've never heard that word. Or a thumb in the middle if you're like, I think maybe I've heard it, but I'm not super sure what it means. Now, if you know what that word means, you can go ahead and maybe think it or share it out loud. But let's listen. So what an adaptation is, it's something on an animal's body that helps it to survive. So thinking about that list we just made, an adaptation is something on an animal's body that helps it survive in wherever it's living. So it may help it find food. An adaptation might help an animal stay safe. It might help an animal to breathe air or water. Oh, and you know what? I just remembered one other adaptation that I want, or one other thing that an animal needs to survive that I want to add to our list. If we go back to our list, I'm going to write it down at the bottom. The other thing an animal needs is they need to be able to find a mate or to reproduce or have babies, right? Because if they aren't able to find a mate or have babies, then that animal species isn't going to continue. So finding a mate, so that's like a partner, plus babies. It's very important. So adaptations, the things on these animals' bodies, are going to help them do these things. Now, some adaptations might help film most of those or multiple of those things. Some adaptations might just help with one thing, but animals have multiple adaptations all over their body. And that's what we're going to explore today. Now, before we dive into the ocean animals, I want to talk about a couple land animals just to get your brain working and see that you will actually recognize a lot of these adaptations. So I want you to think for a moment and picture a giraffe in your brain. Everyone's got a picture of a giraffe? Now, we're not going to see it here. We know that. But picture a giraffe in your brain and think about what is special about a giraffe that is maybe different from other animals that helps it do one of those things we listed. That's right. Their neck is super, super long. And that long neck allows giraffes to get food, right? It allows them to eat leaves at the top of the trees that no other animals can reach. And that way they have their own food source, and that helps them get their food and survive. So one of giraffes' adaptations are their long neck. All right, let's think about another one. Think about a monkey. So close your eyes. Can you picture a monkey in your brain? Excellent. So what do you think a monkey has on their body that maybe is different from other animals that helps them find food, stay protected, find shelter, find a mate, breathe air? What do you think? That's right. They have hands and they have feet and a tail they can use to climb in the trees. And that can help them stay safe. It can help them get away from maybe predators. It also is where their home is, where they find shelter. So every animal you can think of has at least one, but probably more adaptations, including us humans. We've got adaptations as well. But let's go ahead and we're going to dive in. And what we're going to do is we're going to play a little adaptation game. So Sergio is going to pick an animal. We didn't plan this, so I don't know what animal he's going to bring up. But we're going to pick an animal, and then we're going to see if we can figure out what at least one, if not more, of that animal's adaptations are. And that's where you and this text line come in. So I'm going to have Sergio put up our first animal. Amazing. All right. Do you recognize this animal? It's a pretty popular fish in the ocean. We do have them here at the aquarium, but we don't have them here in our oceans locally to us in California. These are our clownfish, or we call them anemone fish as well. So now, take a moment. Let's look at our clownfish. And we can make some observations, things that we notice about this animal's body. And that might help us figure out what are some of their adaptations. Maybe what on their body helps them find food, or helps them stay safe, or helps them to breathe in the water, or to find their mate. And then you can use that text line. That text line, once again, is 562-286-1838. And you can share what adaptations do you think this clownfish has. Now, while you're formulating, I'm going to share some of the observations, so some of the things that I notice, and then maybe those observations will turn into our answers of what adaptations this fish has. So I noticed the color. Did you notice the color? They've got some pretty cool coloring on their body. What colors do you see? That's right. I see orange, right? The very front. And they've almost got stripes. So there's orange here, and then at the back of the body, and then even at their tail is orange. They also have white, right? So they're sort of orange and white stripes. So there's white here, here, and here, and then a little bit at the end. All right, so there's white. And then, I also noticed there's a little bit of black sort of outlining their fins and then their stripes as well. Ooh, and I mentioned they have fins, right? So fish have fins covering their body. And look at all the fins. I can point out they've got a fin here, and then one here, and here, and here, and here, and here. Lots of fins all over their body. What else do you notice? Now, I notice in this image, there's another thing there. It's an animal that's green and purple. That is not part of our clownfish, but it is part of where that animal might live. So now that we've made some observations, do you have any ideas or guesses of what some of their adaptations might be? Well, we talked about the color, and actually that color pattern of this fish is one of those adaptations. Now, we talk about color a lot as an adaptation. You might know that word camouflage, which is a big fancy word, but it just means an animal might be able to blend in with its surroundings. And this is a very, very common adaptation we see amongst a lot of animals. But if we look at our clownfish, do you think it blends into its surroundings? Not really, right? We said it's living in this green and purple anemone, and its body is orange and white. And those colors don't allow it to blend in. So the color isn't allowing this fish to camouflage, but the color is actually really important, and that's because of these stripes. So clownfish, they live in these anemones. And I think these anemones, they kind of have these tentacles, almost kind of look like little fingers. You can make little anemone tentacles that kind of wave or wiggle in the water. And all that movement, oh, here we go. We've got, an anemone with white tentacles. So imagine all these tentacles kind of waving in the water, and that clownfish swimming in and out of those tentacles. Now, some animals, they don't have very good eyesight in the water. So as this fish is swimming in and out of those tentacles of that anemone, that color pattern, that orange and white, especially those white breaking up that orange, it helps break up the color pattern on that fish's body. And when a larger fish who might be looking for a snack is trying to find maybe a clownfish, it's really hard for them to find it if they're moving in and out of this anemone, because these tentacles break up the color of their body along with these stripes, and it almost helps them kind of blend in, even though they're not the same color. So even though some animals might blend in completely, the color might help them camouflage. Sometimes the color just makes it more confusing for another animal to find the animal we're talking about. And so our clownfish, one of their adaptations is the color, because that pattern helps break up the color on their body, and it makes it harder for an animal to find them as they live in that anemone. So that's one adaptation, is this color pattern that kind of breaks up the body of the fish, helps them to stay safe. Now, the clownfish live in anemones. And if you have ever been to our aquarium here or been to another aquarium and touched an anemone, they do something really special to protect their body. So it's one of their adaptations. Now, maybe you're not familiar with what an anemone does, but anemones and jellyfish are related. What do jellyfish do to protect themselves? That's right, they sting. Has anyone ever been stung by a jellyfish? I hope not, although it does happen for some people. But a jellyfish and an anemone, one of their adaptations to stay safe is they can sting. And so these tentacles here, they have stinging cells in them. And for most fish, if they were to swim into the anemone stays safe by stinging that fish. But this clownfish, it's not getting stung because it has another adaptation to stay safe in the place where it lives. Does anyone know how a clownfish stays safe? They have another pretty cool adaptation. They have an extra thick layer of slime. Now you heard that right. They are slimy fish. Well, actually, most fish in the ocean have a layer of slime that covers their body. Another adaptation, because that layer of slime protects their body from any diseases getting inside their body and making them really sick. But the slime that is on our clownfish is specialized. It's super thick, and it makes it so when they swim in and out of the anemone, they aren't getting stung by those tentacles. So those are just two adaptations that our clownfish has, the color and that thick layer of slime. Now there are tons of adaptations this animal has, but those are just two we'll cover. And now we'll move on to another animal. So let's see what Sergio has for us next. I don't know if Sergio knows this, but this is one of my favorite fish that we have here at the aquarium. Has anyone seen a fish like this before? They're a pretty cool fish. Now, both the clownfish and this one, which is called a parrotfish, these are tropical species, which means we don't have them here in our ocean backyard in California. Our water is a little too cold for them, but we do have them here at the aquarium. So these are going to be found in much warmer water. And we have a couple different types of parrotfish, this being the largest one we have, which I think is so cool because the colors on this fish's body are so beautiful. Oop. So we went right into our coral predator exhibit. So this is one of the exhibits that we have here at the aquarium. It's called our coral predators. Now, predator is an animal that eats something else. So the animals in here, they actually eat coral. Now, the coral in this exhibit is safe, don't worry. This coral is actually what we call artificial. It's not real coral, or it's not living coral. Coral is a living animal. It is made out of like a plaster material, and that's because we don't want our animals eating all of their habitat. But they get enough food and the kinds of things they need. But thinking about coral, coral is has a really hard sort of surface to it. So these animals, they eat this really hard, crunchy thing. And I want you to think about how they might be able to eat something hard and crunchy. Now, this fish we're talking about is called a parrotfish. And it gets its name because of its mouth. And I wonder, do we have any other pictures of parrotfish we could take a look at? Oh, excellent. Up close. Take a look at its mouth right here. What do you notice? Everyone give a big smile. You have big teeth. And what do we use our teeth for? Chewing our food, right? Now, parrotfish, we call them modified teeth. So they are teeth, but they're teeth that are kind of fused together. And that means they're all just kind of mushed together. So instead of having individual teeth like we do, they have all their teeth mushed together that makes it look like a beak, like one tooth. Ah, this is perfect. So right here, if we were to look super close with like a microscope at our fish, we would see all these individual little circles. Those are their individual teeth. But what it looks like to us here is just one piece. So it's a beak on the top and bottom. Now, thinking about they're eating corals, they need to eat, right? They need food. They live in this coral habitat. They have decided, for whatever reason, that the thing they want to eat are the algae, the sort of tissues and soft, squishy things that live in those hard corals. And the only way to get to them is to eat that crunchy part. Now, for us, we can eat some crunchy food, but imagine if we took a bite of a rock. What would happen to our teeth? Nothing good, let me tell you. We would break our teeth, and that would be really bad. So these parrotfish, they have these specialized teeth, this beak, that is strong enough and hard enough to munch into those crunchy corals. And so they use this beak to get their food. So that is their adaptation, right? Most other fish, if they were to try and take a bite of coral, they probably wouldn't be able to break off the piece. It might hurt their mouth and damage things. But for our parrotfish, they get their food source that very few other animals can eat because they have adapted. They have this adaptation on their body using this beak-like teeth to eat corals. And then what's kind of cool, kind of gross, is they, like I mentioned, they want the squishy things inside the coral, but they have to eat the hard outside to get to the squishy things on the inside. So they'll eat it, they'll crunch it up, they'll digest it through their body, and then they have to release their waste, right? They have to poop. And when they poop, they're actually pooping out that skeleton from the coral, and it turns into sand. So if you've ever seen pictures, we can look right here. If you've ever seen pictures of white sandy beaches somewhere tropical, or if you've ever visited somewhere tropical with white sandy beaches, a lot of that sand, not 100%, but A good chunk of that sand is actually coming from parrotfish poop. How cool is that? They're helping us make these beautiful beaches. Here's our parrotfish right here. Oop, too far. Right there. So that is one adaptation of our parrotfish. Now, we've got a lot of fish in here, and they're all moving around, right? Animals, they need to move. Moving helps them find that shelter. It can help them stay safe. It can help them go after their food. But I want to pause a moment and think about, how are these fish moving? Now, as humans, I just walked onto camera, right? And I kind of walk right out because I have legs and feet, and we've got our muscles and joints and bones, and that helps us move. But our fish, do they have feet and legs like us? No. Do they have arms and hands like us? Also no. So how are they moving from place to place? What do we notice? Oh, we got a good view of it right here. Our parrotfish is using its fins. So fins are sort of an obvious part of our fish's body. Every fish we look at has at least one, but probably many more fins. And you may not think much of their fins, but that's an adaptation because that helps them move through the water in a really efficient way. So they'll use their side fins for steering, their tail fin for moving forward, that top fin helps them balance. And so all those fins are an adaptation for fish to help them move through their habitat or through their space in order to survive. Excellent. All right, let's see another animal. Oh, look at these. Now, their adaptation is being cute, right? Do y'all agree? They are very cute, but unfortunately, being cute is not really an adaptation. But these animals are adorable, and they've got some really cool adaptations that we can talk about. But first off, what are they? Interesting. What do we think these animals are? Now, sometimes when we see animals that look like this, we hear that they look like a seal. And they are closely related to seals, but these are actually sea lions. So seals and sea lions, they're pretty commonly confused, and that's totally fine. They live in similar habitats. They both move in the water. They both have similar adaptations, but there's a couple things in this picture that shows us that these are sea lions. And one of them being these little things right here. Any guesses what that is? That's their ear. Now, that doesn't mean that seals don't have ears. It's just that sea lions have external ear flaps, or ears on the outside of their body. So these are sea lions, and we can tell because of those ear flaps. We can also tell because of the color of their body. So they are more of a solid brown color, whereas seals tend to have spots or be a little bit lighter. But these are our California sea lions. Now, these two live here at the aquarium, but we do have sea lions here locally in our waters. So this is an animal that we have here at the aquarium. You can come visit, and then you can go out into our natural habitat, out into the open ocean on a whale watch boat, or even sometimes along the docks here, we'll see these California sea lions. But let's think about these animals. These are marine mammals. Ah, excellent. Look at them. It looks like he's talking to us. So this is a good look at their body. We can see those ears again and the brown color on its body. But let's think about, what are some adaptations for our California sea lions? What do they use, or what is helpful, or what parts of their body help them survive in their habitat? Now, our sea lion has given us a good look at their mouth right here, at their jaw. And I actually have a replica jaw of a sea lion that I'm going to put on my document camera, and we can take a look and see if we notice anything. Gotta zoom out. Oop, zooming in. All right, I'm going to take it into two parts. So this is the bottom part, and this is the top part. I guess it doesn't quite fit in my camera, but this is part of their jaw. Now, like I said, this is a replica, so this is exactly what it would look like, but it's, of course, not from a real animal. But this is what their mouth would look like. Now, take a look at these teeth. So here's the front on the top and the bottom. They've got some pretty big teeth. Now, what do you think their teeth are used for? Let's go back and look at our sea lion picture. We mentioned for us and for our parrotfish that we use our teeth to do what? That's right, to chew our food. And sea lions, they're actually not chewing their food, but they do need to catch their food. And they're eating things like fish. So as the sea lions are swimming through the water and fish are swimming through the water, they need those big teeth to grab a hold of their fish. So they're jaw is full of those pointy teeth that help them grab a hold of their fish, hold it in their mouth, and then be able to swallow that food. Now, we mentioned swimming through the water, and you can kind of see it down here on the sea lion. Now, they don't have fins like the fish. So fish have fins, that's their adaptation for moving through the water. But sea lions, this is a great video, take a look at how they're moving through the water. Now, it might look really similar to fins, but what sea lions have are actually called flippers. Now, go ahead and put your arms up in front of you or out to the side. Just make sure if you're in class, you're not bumping into anyone. These are your sea lion flippers. Now, they help them swim through the water. Now, the difference between fins and flippers, or if we were to take an x-ray, the inside of a fin versus the inside of a flipper, they would look really different. Flippers have bones in them. So our arms, if we took an x-ray, would have bones inside. And flippers, they have bones as well. Fins don't have bones, so not the same kind of structure. But they do work in similar ways. So these flippers are helping the sea lion to swim through the water. And they are excellent swimmers. Just look at how big or how long their flippers are. It helps propel them or move them through the water. And then they also have those tail flippers as well that help them steer and push them as well. Aren't they so fun to watch? So this is out in the open ocean in a kelp forest, which is their natural habitat. Now, we mentioned with our clownfish the color on their body. So look at the color of our sea lions. They're kind of a brown color. And what else do you notice here? This is some seaweed or kelp. And kelp ranges in colors. This leaf right here, this blade, looks really green or yellow, but sometimes it can look kind of brown. And the sea lions tend to live not super deep, but they live sort of below the surface. So with the water or with the sun shining down on the water, it creates lots of shadows. And then if you've got all these stalks of kelp that are kind of brownish, excellent, so we can see the sun shining down, that makes the color of their body kind of blend in or kind of hard to see and helps them stay safe. So one of the ways that they protect themselves is having that brown color that helps them kind of hide in and out of the shadows and in and out of the kelp in their home. So they can move with their flippers. That's an adaptation. They catch their food with those big teeth and that beautiful smile. And then they also, the color helps them stay safe and hide in their habitat. All right, we have about 2 minutes left. Let's see if we can do one more animal real quick. Ah, excellent. Another cute animal. Super furry, right? You notice the fur on this animal? Now, the sea lion was furry, but the otter, the sea otter, that's what this animal is, their fur is one of their adaptations. The biggest adaptation they have, their fur, and it's super important, and it does something a little bit different than the fur on the sea lion. So the sea lion had fur, and it was that brown color, but for the otter, their fur, the main job is to keep them warm. Now, for our sea lion, one of their adaptations to stay warm in cold water is blubber. It's a thick layer of fat inside their body. Otters, they don't have that thick layer of fat. They don't have that blubber. So instead, they have this specialized fur. So it's different than the fur on the sea lion. The otter's fur is specialized. There's actually 2 layers of fur. There's an underlayer that's kind of like a downy, really cozy layer. And then there's this outer layer that protects their body and keeps them from even getting wet. So when they go in the water, their skin, which is underneath all that fur, doesn't even get wet. The water doesn't touch their skin because if it touched their skin, it would make them really chilly. And they live in super cold water, even colder water than we have here in Southern California. And so those 2 layers of fur that are so thick help protect the otter's body and keep them warm. So their adaptation is having super, super thick fur. They have the thickest fur of any mammal on the ocean or in the ocean or on land. So that fur is their super important adaptation. All right, everyone, we are out of time. I hope you had fun learning a little bit about what animals need to survive, those adaptations that help them get those things or achieve those things, and then we explored some animals and the adaptations they have. Now, I challenge you, as you move throughout your day, if you're at school or in your neighborhood or your community, look for animals. We have lots of animals who live around, and see if you can identify any of their adaptations, because every animal you see, as I mentioned, has at least one, but probably a lot more adaptations. All right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed. We have another program coming up at 10. Sergio is going to be teaching us all about sharks, and that program is going to be in Spanish. So join us then, and we'll see you later. Bye, everyone.